So before we hit record on this episode, Roy and I had been speaking to each other for about 40 minutes, just getting to know each other because keep in mind, this is the first time that Roy and I had ever had a conversation with each other. We had only messaged each other through Instagram, but we hadn't had an actual conversation up until 40 minutes before hitting record on this podcast. And well, Roy being a coach and having a master's degree in psychology, eventually we got to the topic of what happened to me in 2023. Why was that year so challenging? So this was a really difficult episode to make, but I feel it's totally worth it. And I hope this helps somebody out there listening. Thanks. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Look Saigon podcast. I'm here with Roy Wang, visiting us from Washington State. And we just had a really good conversation, actually. So you're continuing to hear the second part of this conversation that I wish we recorded, but it's all good. What's up, Roy?
Yeah, hey, happy to be here, Nick.
And this is really cool because I think you are the first coach I've had on the podcast of any
Oh,
kind.
all right.
I've had some friends, some entrepreneurs in Saigon and also in America, but you're the first coach.
Okay, all right. I'm honored.
I wonder, like, yeah, could you let people know, yeah, like what what do you coach specifically?
So I work as a men's coach. So most of my focus has been on men. I was formerly a therapist before I switched into coaching. And my focus on men's work came from my own journey, as it does for many, feeling disconnected and disempowered in my own masculine energy. So it's the very textbook example of the nice guy, was afraid to ask for what I wanted, was very much in the deep people pleasing behaviors, which also meant there was a lot of insecurity, shame,
Mm,
and just fear of going for what I wanted, just living life small, but then being bitter towards myself, towards other people. And of course, that led to addictions as well, like gaming addiction, porn addiction, what have you.
mm,
So I found that most of the men who do come to me also have similar struggles, which is always interesting in this work is that the very similar wounds that we've had tend to be the ones that are the clients that we work with.
mm,
So yeah, I support men who similarly come from the more sensitive side of being the nice guy, feeling they were never the quote unquote alpha male, can't get what they want, afraid to ask for what they want, deep insecurity, imposter syndrome. And what I guide these men to do is essentially to shatter those limiting beliefs, behaviors,
mm,
to help them realize who they actually are beyond that conditioning, and to then begin taking those actions that are aligned with who they want to be, how they want to live their lives, what they
mm,
say they want, and bringing all of that in alignment. So there's no longer that self sabotage where it's like one foot's going this direction and the other foot's going the other.
mhm. I feel like I do see like parts of my past self in in your coaches. So I want to ask you like, what is it about, yeah, about your coaches, also about like even in myself, like why would we feel insecure in that specific way? Like why is it difficult to ask for help?
Hmm. Yeah, it it often has to do with upbringing. So family of origin is something that was a big part of my master's program of understanding
Mm,
how you are the way you are has to do with where you've come from. And if you don't have awareness of where you've come from, then where you're going is going to be exactly where you've come from,
mm,
because that's what we're familiar with. That our mind is a pattern seeking
mm,
program. Right?
Mhm.
We go towards what's familiar, and what's uncertain or unknown, we kind of stay away from.
Mhm.
So it could be, growing up in a family where there was divorce, and kids will usually internalize that as like, I did something bad. That's why my parents split up. So
Mhm.
just from that, there can be an internalization of shame. Something about me is wrong. I did
Mhm.
something bad. How you relate to your parents. So how did your mother or how did your father treat you?
Mhm.
In my case, it was my parents did divorce when I was young and was raised by my mom and grandma.
Mhm.
And with my mom, there's always that sense of, especially in Chinese culture, there's like the stereotype of the dragon mother or the tiger mother,
Mm.
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But she's the one who calls all the shots, plans everything. The stereotype of, you bring dishonor on our family if you're not doing well in school.
Mhm.
So there's always that sense of not measuring up, and you're just this close from messing up and bringing shame about yourself and the family.
Mhm.
So those are some examples of what could be going on that leads to men internalizing this identity that they're weak, uh, or they can't ask for what they want because the times that they did, their parents like, that's stupid. You don't need that toy. It's a waste of money,
Mm.
which then we can internalize like, oh, waste of money. What I want is stupid and a waste. So
Mm.
just don't want anything.
And it stays until adulthood, right? Like it lingers
Mhm.
there.
Right,
Um,
right.
how does someone become aware of that? Just out of curiosity, or like,
This is the journey of the self work, inner work, because up until I started my master's program, the only awareness that I had was feeling bad, but
mm,
I didn't know how to change that.
mhm,
That's where, income addictions, right? Pleasure seeking
true.
to move away from the pain. So to answer the question, like how does one even become aware of it? It I would say primarily, unless the person does deep self inquiry, like you brought up earlier when we were just chatting, uh, during the pandemic, you developed a huge interest in Zen Buddhism. Right?
Mm,
And there's a lot of self reflection, inquiry there. Who am I? Who's this I with these thoughts and beliefs? But if one doesn't go that route, I think it mainly comes through relationships that we become aware of these things, where
mm,
somebody will say, you know, Roy, you're always behaving incredibly nice, and I actually don't trust that. Like,
mm,
don't tell me you don't have anger ever. And there was an instance of that where I felt very confronted because, like, oh, well, no, it's very important to me to be nice and people pleasing because that's what
mm,
it means to be a good person. So if somebody reflects and challenges that back, then that's where an awareness starts to come up.
mhm. It's like our partner's like a mirror for us.
Yeah, partner, friends, colleagues.
Yeah.
Uh, Another great way to become aware is your triggers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, have you seen those opera singers where they're holding a glass and the opera lady sings the right note and then the glass shatters?
I haven't seen that, but I thought it was just in movies. Is that a real thing?
It's a real thing, yeah.
Whoa,
The,
nice.
the idea is the resonant frequencies.
Mm,
So when they hit the same frequencies, that's where it, you know, shatters.
nice.
So the idea with triggers, that the way I see it is, I wouldn't be triggered if something that this person said did not resonate with something that was held within me as true or I believed.
Right. It feels like, yeah, if somebody's pushing my buttons, it's implying that I have buttons.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
That's a
then
great
and
to
then I
illustrate.
wonder like I wonder like was that button always there or was it placed there at some time
Mhm.
during my life? And if it was placed there, can I remove it somehow? Is what
Mhm.
I ask myself.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But then so like do you think it's possible to remove these buttons?
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't be supporting other people in this work if I didn't
Right.
know it was possible. Just first in myself, and
Mm.
then with the results that I've had with my clients as well.
In the like in the moments that people believe it's not possible to remove these buttons, they just feel like constant pain. Is that where addiction comes in to kind of like to
Mhm.
soothe yourself? Because we don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Yes. Because usually nobody's ever like, yeah, I love this pain. I love to feel ashamed of myself. And so we try our best with what we know how to do with the limits of what we know to try to move away from that pain.
Mm,
So in some sense, there's actually a certain beauty to that. It's
mm,
like, okay, this person isn't going to drugs, porn, whatever it is, because they're a shitty person.
mm,
Which that's often what we believe when we are doing that. We don't feel good about it, even though it helps temporarily.
mm,
But the beauty part of it is like, well, this person is doing what they know. They're doing the best with what they know to try
that's
to
true.
cope with this thing
That's true.
until they find there's other ways.
Mhm. Yeah, I found like there's a part of me in my mind that wants to sabotage my healing because it enjoys those coping mechanisms so much. Like for example, porn.
Mhm.
Like it and
Mhm.
it feels like I guess kind of scared to be healed. I think something like that. Like it wants to
Mhm.
continue partaking in those activities. I guess because it's short term, right? Like short term pleasure.
Mhm.
It doesn't want to wait for the benefits of like long term pleasure.
Mhm. Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, someone very close to me is dealing with a challenge like this right now. Mm, I think it would benefit him a lot if we can help him see what are the benefits of reducing short-term pleasure.
Mm. Well, one of the I mean, I can understand why he wouldn't believe that right now,
Mm,
because if there's nothing to look towards to, it doesn't matter.
right.
So if there's nothing that exists for him as these are my values, this is what's important to me, this is what I want to create and build in life,
Mm,
then whatever the temporary instant gratification pleasures are, it makes sense why they're there.
mhm,
So I think first it just comes to a conversation, perhaps just between the you and him, right? Of is there more that you want beyond this, or is this okay?
mhm,
And if it's okay, then all right, more power to you.
mhm.
Um, I think that can sometimes be the hard part of being a friend. You care about your friends, and you might see them suffering, but to them, it's like this is just what how things are. It's I've accepted it.
Mm,
But if he's listening, or other people are listening who do want something more, like they actually want to create, build something beyond just this familiar pleasure pain cycle,
mm.
then I would say one of the top benefits of overcoming these short term pleasures is to experience that deep well of joy, peace, and fulfillment that those short term things are just a small mirror of.
I feel my one of the challenges my friend has is that because he's seeking these short-term pleasures, he gets bored really easily. And
Mm,
it's hard, it's kind of challenging for him to maybe just like spend some time just doing nothing
yeah.
and deciding what he really wants to do because it's that hunger for the short-term pleasure is so distracting.
mm
Like
Mhm.
he needs something else, or else he's just so bored that.
mm Mhm.
Why does it feel that, like in those moments, why does it feel that the feeling of boredom is gonna last forever?
mm Mhm. mm Mhm. Well, here's two things that come up for me. I was watching a YouTube video. I think the channel is called Academy of Ideas,
Mm,
and the title was something about how boredom leads to greatness or boredom leads to creativity.
mhm,
And there, it was highlighting how even before all these technological advances, people were still bored. Like that hasn't ever changed. But because there weren't all these distractions, people had to sit with their boredom,
mhm,
and out of that boredom comes creativity, new ideas. It's kind of this concept of none of us are really ever eating 24/7. Like we
mhm,
need time in between our meals to digest everything, to absorb the nutrition. But we do that with our minds where we're constantly consuming, right? Even
mhm,
positive things like, oh, the podcasts, the books, the whatever. And it can feel great. It's all these dopamine hits.
mhm,
But because we're not taking periods of time to be bored, to move slowly or take a walk or clean the house, none of it fully ever gets incorporated. It's kind of just like this mental noise that we know about.
mhm,
And I imagine that's probably what happens for him is the short-term pleasures create that dopamine. But as they illustrated in that video, when you do that all the time, you increase your baseline of what amount of dopamine is needed to
mhm,
feel engaged. And so if he keeps raising it, right, or anybody else who relates to this keeps raising it, then everything else by comparison will feel very boring.
mhm. Almost like, if I imagine like the baseline, I just imagine his dopamine is like a zigzag,
hmm
because I guess the crash is equal to the high, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then that's where I think more distraction comes in because then with our mind, our nervous system, we interpret boredom, the feeling of boredom as a threat.
Mm,
And so then we're thinking, all right, fight or flight, how to deal with this. And then we seek more of those things as a fight or flight response to deal with what we are interpreting as threat, which is just the boredom.
like as we're talking about this, I feel like the word boredom usually has like a negative charge to it. So
Yeah,
I wonder, like, how can we define boredom exactly?
that's a great question. Perhaps the absence of thrill, the absence of engagement and
Mm,
like focused attention. Because when I think about feeling bored, I don't have focused attention on anything. And I don't feel particularly engaged with something in front of me.
mhm.
So that's two examples I can think of. What about you?
Yeah, I was thinking like, if I'm feeling bored, maybe it's like I feel like not interested with anything going on around me, and it almost
Mm,
triggers like a sense of desperation, like, oh my God, what should I
Yeah,
do right now?
right, right.
Then I feel this also triggers another question, like, is it possible to be interested in what's happening around you, even just like right now? Like, is it possible to be interested just by the sound of the fan in my room?
hmm
And I wonder how that would affect the feeling of being bored, and if that could be helpful to get you back to a healthy baseline.
Yeah. Well, you probably know this just from your own self study and practice of Zen Buddhism, but this is where there's the practice of mindfulness, right,
Mm,
where it's about awareness of the thing that's happening.
Mhm.
And you probably heard people say, if we're just using boredom as the example, okay, a person says, I feel bored. Are you aware that you feel bored? Yes.
Mm.
And then you can say it becomes a little more a meta perspective of, but your awareness of the boredom is not bored.
Right.
And so if you can get to that perspective of seeing and experiencing, then it's just, you could be okay in traffic even.
Mm.
Right? Here I am experiencing traffic and whatever feelings and thoughts are associated with it.
Mhm.
And just being the observer of that experience, aware of the experience.
Nice. Yeah, this is where like the pattern now matches with spirituality because like they'll say things like it's like are you really bored or are you observing the boredness?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that gets into the whole topic of like who am I really? But maybe we'll save that for later. But like unidentifying with the emotions that we
Hmm.
feel that helps us to observe them better then, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then suddenly boredom is like I experimented with this just yesterday morning when we had
Hmm.
parent teacher meetings, and I was feeling kind of bored, like waiting for the parents to show up.
Hmm.
And luckily there was a fan in the room just spinning and I could hear it. And then I just thought, what if I just
Hmm.
listen to this fan for a while I'm
Hmm.
waiting and I'm listen to that and observe my own feelings of boredom and desperation. And I did feel them decrease.
Hmm.
Like I did feel like, yeah, like the tension in me begin to decrease and just I could just enjoy listening to this random sound for a while. And you kind of
Hmm.
get lost in it. It feels nice.
Yeah.
And this could also be labeled as meditation, right?
Yeah, I think so. Becoming aware of sounds or the colors, sights, taste
Mhm. And I feel
is.
also like it's related to becoming interested in whatever your present moment is.
Hmm. Right.
Because actually, like, uh, you can choose to be interested in whatever is happening. Like, it's kind of like, isn't it so trippy that we're even alive right now? Like, that we're
Hmm.
even experiencing this metaverse or whatever this is. Like, isn't this
Hmm.
kind of a weird experience, but also cool?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is the challenge then to get people interested in just being alive?
I think part of the challenge would then be slowing down
Mm,
and more intentionally consuming content, whatever it may be,
mm,
whether it's food or information, because there's a lot of focus on, bigger, faster, shinier, all these things. And like I was talking about with the digesting of food, like we don't give ourselves time to really digest a lot of that these days with
mm,
modern society being so fast paced. And so this is where a lot of people talk about like the concept of rewilding, like going out into nature
mm,
barefoot, just sitting and watching the clouds or hiking or walking along the shores
mm.
to just be in the experience of life without having to make something happen because the life is already happening life is happening without you having to try to make it happen,
Right.
and there's probably some magic that is happening that you're not aware of when we are so busy trying to make it happen.
True. This reminds me of just last night I was watching this Mr. Beast video where he goes
Hmm.
from oh check out this yacht, a $1 yacht compared to a $1 million yacht compared to the $25 million yacht, and they keep increasing how expensive these yachts are and how they experience it.
Hmm.
But now it feels clear that even if you chill in the $50 million yacht for enough time, you will get bored of that.
Hmm.
Um, I learned this recently because I met this really cool Australian family that they're millionaires, but they're also so jaded about
Yeah. Yeah.
the things they experience, and they can't even enjoy something simple like a sandwich or
Mm-hmm.
they went on a trip to Dubai, and I was like, hey, how was Dubai? And they're like, nah, it sucks. It's boring, the food's not that good. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I just wonder like what can they
Yeah.
enjoy? Like they're constantly seeking extreme sports
Right.
and
Right. Right.
stimulating things, but like how can they actually be happy then? Is it possible that like a homeless person is happier than they are?
Dude, I think our thoughts were disconnected because I was thinking something like that,
Nice.
where you could take a very rich person and then a homeless person, and they're looking at the same sunset.
Mm,
And the man who's homeless would be like, this is peak beauty,
mm,
and just take it in, soak it in. Whereas for the man who's rich, depending on the person, could
true.
enjoy it equally. Yeah. But if he is maybe more jaded, be like, oh, well, this, I've seen one sunset, I've seen them all,
Mm,
sort of a thing.
yeah,
Where do we need to go next? What's the to-do list?
yeah. I've been to Fiji. I've seen better sunsets in Fiji.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
uh it feels almost like in the case of that family that feels jaded because they're rich. I feel like they have faith that the money will help them experience enough pleasure to, I guess, sustain them in
Mhm.
their life. But it's constantly seeking though. They're constantly seeking like,
Yeah. Yeah, if it becomes too externally focused, I think that's where it dries up because it could never be enough. There was, I forgot who did this podcast, but a podcast with a guy named Dan Bilzerian. Are you familiar with him?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So his whole Instagram thing, like somehow he made a lot of money. Maybe it was an inheritance from his father, or poker, or some sort of thing. But a lot of his Instagram is just him and a harem of women.
yeah.
In one podcast, he had said, somebody asked him, like, how many women is enough? And he
Mm.
said, I don't think it could ever be enough. But there was like a quality to what he was saying that was almost, there was like an emptiness, right?
Yeah.
A seeking of, well, it's still not enough. And so that, I think this is where it then comes to the internal piece,
Mm.
right? Whether it's with your friend, with Dan, or whoever, or even ourselves at some point, because I'm not perfect,
Mm.
where we can turn so much attention to the external, then we forget our connection to self, higher self, spirit, God, the divine, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
We lose that connection. Whereas when I think of like the Stoics or the samurai or the monks, there seems to be a common thread there where they meditate on their death, or they are okay with boredom, and that's where these thoughts and insights come because they go into it.
Mhm. This thought of boredom, now going back into boredom, like I feel like sometimes during boredom, this thought appears like I should be doing something. I'm not being
Mm,
productive right now.
right, right.
I'm being inefficient right now.
Mm,
But what if actually we become more efficient by letting ourselves be bored? That doesn't it let us
mhm,
think more clearly afterwards?
mhm. I think so.
I'm just starting to learn this now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
not just I think so, but I've experienced it as well. Of intentionally taking that time to slow down. A simple practice I've done in the evenings is I've started to use oil lamps instead of just regular lights.
mm,
And there's something even beautiful about the ritual of lighting the lamp,
mm,
that there's, I guess, something primitive or primal about it, like making a fire. It's one step
mm,
closer to making a fire than turning on a switch,
true.
and then just sitting and watching the little flame
Hmm.
and being okay with the silence. And there's like a slowing down and appreciation of the slowness.
Hmm.
And then sometimes this idea will just spontaneously pop up.
Right.
And then great, I'll write it down. And then I'll take care of that for tomorrow when I write about it.
Hmm. Okay. I feel like this is actually bringing us to the topic of faith because some people will not believe that if you do nothing, it's actually beneficial. Like,
Hmm.
doesn't it require some kind of faith that there's something beneficial in the boredness?
I think for us in the modern day, it requires that because so many of us don't believe there is something positive.
Hmm.
Like if we were to look at it, do you have any pets?
Yeah, I have two cats.
Okay. Real productive, aren't they?
They're just chilling all the time.
But you love them. We love
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
They're quote unquote doing something just by being
Hmm.
there as your cats. And so just looking out at pets or animals, there's plenty of times where they're just lounging around,
Yeah.
lazing around, and they still do whatever it is that they need to do.
Hmm.
And so for us modern day humans, I think, yeah, there needs to be, whether it's faith or, yeah, maybe that's just what it is, faith and trust of the world will still be going around if you do nothing for 30 minutes.
Mm. Like faith that doing nothing is actually beneficial for us.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like now that you mentioned the cats, um, I think I should ask you this question. Uh, in Chinese, the word wu wei, I'm probably
Hmm.
saying that wrong, but yeah, how would you define wu wei? I've heard it defined as actionless action, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. Like, do you have another way of interpreting that word?
I don't know what the kanji is for Wu Wei, so I wouldn't be able to explain it too well in terms of like the original
Oh, I can show
character.
you my tattoo if you want. I don't know if it comes
Oh
up
yeah,
as
did you tattoo it?
yeah.
Okay.
Does that make, I don't
I
know if
mean,
it's backwards.
if somebody showed that to me, I wouldn't be able to even read it as Wu Wei.
Uh,
But maybe the first character there's something that has the meaning of without. I could be
mhm.
completely making that up, but if it is actionless action, or is the other definition I've heard that Alan Watts gave was effortless action, I think
Nice.
the the way of doing without doing or something. It's this paradoxical thing where um, the way he explained it, which I loved, was you can't get it by trying, but you also can't get it by not trying.
Mm,
And so, in that sort of humor and insanity of, all right, well, if I try, I can't get it. And if I don't try, I also can't get it.
mm,
You're saying, like, well, what is there left to do? You kind of just laugh at yourself and then you make a choice. And there's faith and trust in that choice. Like, okay, well, let's just see what happens then.
mm,
This is my target. This is my intention. If I get it, great. If I don't get it, fine. Maybe I'll try a different way. And
mm,
there's sort of a surrender. So I think it's almost like shooting an arrow. Like you do your best to aim, but once you let go of the arrow, that's it. You
mm.
can only watch the arrow fly.
What you mentioned right now, surrender. I feel this is related, right, to the whole faith and boredom conversation. Like stop trying. Like stop
Hmm.
trying to do something.
Hmm.
Just give up for a little bit and see what happens.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, when I think of Wu Wei, I think, yeah, I thought about the cats because like they're not really I feel like they're not really trying to do something. They're just, I don't know, like just being themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, isn't that like the state of nature? Like, it's just doing its thing.
Hmm. Yeah. And I would imagine with cats or any animal, they're not thinking, try to catch this mouse. There's just do it. And
Yeah.
you don't catch the mouse, then it's like, all right, where's the next mouse? Or just go back, take a nap.
Mm.
And then when there's another mouse, try to not try to catch that mouse, but all right, catch the mouse.
Like the reason I got the cats was like I felt that they could coach me on something. Uh, because you know, like Eckhart Tolle, he mentioned like he had many Zen masters in his life and they were all cats.
Mm,
So then
I
I
did not
thought,
hear
so
that.
then I thought like, let me get some cats and just see what happens. And I feel like
Mm-hmm,
they did coach me on I'll just label this as I'll label this as law of attraction for now.
hmm.
Because I felt like when I would try to seek them out and pet them, they would run away
Yeah,
from
yeah,
me.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And then when I would just like relax on the couch, they would come to me.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I've heard that so much with cats, experience that as well.
And then I wonder, like, you know, like in the even here in Vietnam, they also have the little like cat objects in the stores where the cat's moving like
Yep,
this.
yep, yep.
And then I saw some content that said like money is like a cat that when you chase it, it runs away. So I thought
Mm,
maybe this is a good skill to learn right now.
hmm, hmm.
How to attract the things that I want. But then it also gets me into this whole confusion of like, where are my desires coming from?
Mm,
So I think that's my challenge right now to like be aware of like my desires. Are they coming from my, let's say, from my wounds,
mm,
or
hmm,
is it from like the intuition that comes through when I let myself be bored?
hmm, hmm.
So I think that's my personal challenge right now, and that's been going on since last year. Like, is this my mind or just intuition? Like sometimes I can't tell
Mm. With your desires?
with my desires. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Well, I mean, I would love to hear an example.
Okay, so basically, even before I went to India last year during Lunar New Year, I had decided to trust whatever my intuition says if I'm able to recognize that it's intuition, and I would just try my best. Like I kind of just uh believe that intuition is when a suggestion appears in my mind and it's something scary that I should do that maybe I don't want to do,
Mm,
but there's a suggestion that you should do this thing. So that's how I had been trying to identify intuition. Yeah, before going to India. So to give some context, before going to India, I had been in a relationship with someone for about like 3 years. And well, like at the end of the third year, it was going downhill, to be
mm,
honest. Like we had lost communication and I didn't know how to, yeah, what to do about it. And I mean, neither of us, me and my partner, didn't know what to
mm,
do. And at first I thought, should I go find another girlfriend? But then I tried my best to ask my own intuition, like, should I go find another girlfriend? And then it replied like, it doesn't matter. You should just work on yourself.
mm,
And then
mhm,
I just felt like, God damn it, I wish you would have said yes, go find another girlfriend. And then I just asked this request, like, well, can I at least meet like the person that's right for me then? And I just left it at that. And then yeah, a few months went by and then this opportunity to go to India appeared.
Mhm.
with my group of spiritual friends. They're like, yeah, let's go. That sounds awesome. Let's do it. So and meanwhile, my relationship continued to just keep going more and more and more downhill. And I just told myself, like, I'm gonna continue to let this just spiral down until it's clear to both me and my partner that we should end this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I also felt scared to like be alone and break up with her, and I felt scared
Mhm.
to hurt her feelings and all of that.
Mhm.
So in hindsight, I feel like I should have just ended it when it was
Mhm.
obvious that it was gonna end anyways. But I
Mhm.
just let it continue. And so a few more months went by, and I take this trip to India. And then like in my travel group, I meet someone who I feel like, whoa, I really connect with this person. We have similar thinking. She's like, we're on a similar path, and she's more on the self-development side. I'm more on the spiritual side. And like, but we just really clicked and connected during this trip. And then I felt in my mind this suggestion appear, like, you should just end your current relationship and you should try with this person.
Mhm.
And so when I perceived this suggestion, yeah, I didn't think much about, like, is this intuition? Is this my mind? Like, it just
Mhm.
this the suggestion feels so strong that I think it's intuition. So, and also I want to do this anyways,
Mhm.
even though it does feel scary to like break up with my like 3 year long girlfriend. Like, it feels scary, but I think I should do this. So after the trip, we returned back to Vietnam, and I did that. Like,
Mhm.
I ended it with my 3 year long girlfriend, and I started to see the girl from my travel group.
Mhm.
And yeah, like we dated. It was amazing. Like, we were like, actually, yeah, like looking back, I jumped into a new relationship like really quickly.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the first month was amazing. Like, the first month was like that honeymoon phase. Like, it feels like
Mhm.
drugs. Like,
Mhm.
and then after a month, like when the honeymoon phase began to fade away a little bit, it's like all of the things that I didn't deal with about my previous
Mhm.
relationship, like I didn't take any time to like to mourn it, or didn't
Mhm.
take any time to let go of anything. It just hit me like a bag
Mhm.
of bricks, like all at once. And
Mhm.
I didn't know how to handle that, honestly. Like,
Mhm.
it just kicked the shit out of me.
Mhm.
And it felt like my brain just like short circuited. I was like, whoa,
Mhm.
like a mental breakdown, just like huge waves of guilt that I never experienced before. Like, I never thought about learning how to deal with guilt in the past because I never experienced so much guilt.
Mhm.
It was like overwhelming for a while.
Mhm.
And my brain even went into this mode where it's like, I think I should get back with my previous ex. I think
Mhm. Mhm.
I think I should do that. And actually what happened was I did try to get back with her. Like,
Mhm.
I did try to get back with her. And then as I'm yeah, trying to reconnect with her, my mind flips again. It's like, what if this is a mistake? What if actually it was the girl you just met? And then I just said, like, you know what? I'm gonna keep following this suggestion. I don't know what this suggestion is. This is really weird, but I'm gonna just keep following it. So I flipped again, and
Mhm.
I must have flipped like 3 times. Like, I
Mhm.
flipped back and forth. And, like, I never experienced that ever, and I was like, why is this happening? Like,
Mhm.
why
Mhm.
why am I getting these suggestions to keep flipping? And like, no matter in which direction I start to go towards, it keeps
Mhm.
flipping me to the other one. And when I go
Yeah.
to this one, it flipped me again. And like, I was just so confused about that. And I think that is actually what led me into inquiring about the mother wound,
Yeah.
because it was just happening so much, like, and just causing so much pain for me and for these people that I care about. Like,
Mhm.
why am I doing this? Why does this keep
Mhm.
happening?
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that led me into investigating about my own mother wound. So in
Yeah.
the end, it was totally worth it. But
Mhm.
in that moment, it was just like that. It was like hell, man. Like,
Mhm.
Like,
I appreciate you being so open and honest about sharing that. It, I think it makes sense. Your original question of the not question, but stating the confusion around intuition, desires. Like, is this coming from intuition or is this coming from like a
mm,
conditioned part of mind? Because I'm guessing from that story you shared, after that experience, it was like a blow to your mind of like, am I able to make decisions at all from a grounded and clear place, or am I just completely, fooling myself? Is that fair?
I just felt like, what the hell is going? Like, I was just like so confused. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, and also, why do I keep hurting people? Like, I think that was the biggest thing in my mind. Why do I keep doing things that hurt people? And how can I stop this?
Hmm.
Like, I did
Hmm.
have faith that I could stop it, but I was just trying to figure out like what the hell is going on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me was the guilt. Like, I felt like the guilt. I felt like it just kept feeding itself like with no end. And
Hmm.
the good thing about that experience was that like the guilt experience was that I it gave me the chance to learn the skill of forgiving myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
That's
like that was totally worth it because now if I feel guilty now, it lasts for like a few seconds
hmm.
and I can let it go pretty quick. But in that moment I didn't have that skill, so it just I was just getting destroyed by that feeling.
Hmm.
Until I came across this book called Radical Self-Forgiveness.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that actually helped me to
Hmm.
deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Because the the feeling of guilt at a certain point, it exhausts its value if there isn't anything we can actually do, or if there's anything to be done.
exactly.
So the sometimes the pain of guilt and the emotional pain that we have there isn't so much about, okay, I hurt somebody, and I'm a awful person because of that. That can create pain for sure. But it's also the pain of feeling like, okay, I've hurt somebody and I want to do something to fix it or redeem it, yet feeling that nothing can actually redeem it.
Mm,
Like, as much as we would like to try to make things better, it doesn't make things better, or it
mm,
makes things worse.
exactly. Yeah. Like later on, I researched. Oh no, I watched this Netflix series called How to Be a Cult Leader. And
Mm,
one thing about these cult leaders that I found in common was that it's like they have no ability to feel guilt.
hmm.
Like they're just completely guiltless and they hurt everyone and they don't feel any shame or guilt about it. So in that moment, I felt like grateful that I could feel guilt in the first place. Like
Hmm.
I'm glad that I have the ability to feel guilt so I can stop doing toxic things.
Hmm.
So I can stop being angry about guilt as an emotion, and
Hmm.
at the same time, I can acknowledge that long term, like I feel like the only purpose of long term guilt is to learn self forgiveness,
Hmm. Yeah.
and besides that, it's just like destroying yourself.
Yeah. And in your situation, I'm not hearing that. I didn't hear you say, all right, I just woke up today and was like, how can I hurt two women that I really care about in my life?
Right, right.
How can I make their lives even worse? It it sounded more to me like you were caught in some sort of inner process of hearing, this voice, or feeling this impression of having needing to do something, right?
Mm,
And doing your best to try to figure out how to deal with that.
mhm,
Which one of the consequences was, yeah, the two women involved, there was, I guess you said, the emotional pain of flipping back and forth and confusing them as well, I'm sure.
mhm.
but it's not that you went in with the intention to want to cause harm.
Right. That's true.
So I guess that's where you bring in the mother wound, like you were uncovering something there that was operating.
Right. Yeah, it feels like these suggestions of that I should flip and flip and flip and keep looking. I feel like that was coming from yeah, mother wound.
Mm,
So it gave me the chance to heal that actually. To at least begin the process of healing that.
mhm, mhm,
I feel there's still a little I feel there's still some left to heal, but at least it's much better than last year.
mm,
Like it's totally handleable now.
yeah. Well, I'd be curious, and it's your podcast, so you choose how much you share. If you want to go in this direction, I'm imagining there are people who will listen and be like, "Well, what is a mother wound? And
Uh,
what-
right, yeah,
where, how does that fit into this whole situation of
right,
influencing that?"
right. So I guess I would have to just give it my example then,
Okay.
so it makes sense. So my example would be that yeah, I have really young parents. Like
Mm,
my parents had me when they were teenagers,
okay.
and yeah, and I'm sure my mom has her own father wounds
Hmm, hmm,
that she's still dealing with, and yeah, so that caused her to be accidentally like emotionally unavailable to me as a kid,
hmm,
and so like in my mind, I knew she was my biological mom,
hmm,
but I also felt like she doesn't fit into what a mom is supposed to be, so I don't know who my mom actually is. Like I know I came out of her body,
hmm,
but
hmm,
but I'm not sure if I have a mother, something
hmm,
like that.
hmm,
So then yeah, that left like a big void in me, right? Like do
hmm,
I have a mother? I don't know if I have a mother. Like uh
hmm,
I'm not sure what to do about that. And then that affected me in my relationships
hmm,
because I would like accidentally try to use my partner to fill that void.
hmm,
Yeah. And so like now putting that into the context of what I just told you, what happened with these two women,
hmm,
it was kind of like who can fill the void better? This one? No, no, no. I think this one. No, I think this one. And like 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 the wound just couldn't decide like, oh, like how can I fill this void as best as possible instead of instead of trying to fill it on my own,
hmm, hmm.
which I had never thought about before that situation. I had never even thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So ultimately it was a good thing because it led me to actually asking myself, wait, so how can I fill that void
Right.
on my own?
Yeah, that's sometimes the way we learn best is through the painful experiences. And even, are you familiar with whether it's the reality or the concept of past lives and karmic relationships?
I've heard of that.
Okay.
Heard of that.
So kind of the idea is that even incarnating in the lives that we are here for now,
Mm,
who our parents are, lovers, all these things, it's as if like we made that choice before coming in, is how I've heard it explained.
mm,
So if we were to use that framework and the idea of karmic relationships, it's like these relationships are in our life to help us learn a lesson,
mm,
to complete something, so that when we've cleared or overcome it, it it's no longer something where it feels like a curse or we're just stuck with it, but we've
mm,
integrated whatever the lesson is so that we can move to the next whatever
mm.
thing is.
Nice.
And so sometimes that's the way it goes with relationships. From one relationship we learn self-forgiveness. For from another relationship we might learn how to hold our boundaries, set boundaries, stand up for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And then that makes us a match for whoever, whether it's a soulmate or something that doesn't go necessarily as long. It's like there are these lessons that are building along the way.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And I feel like in regards to like healing wounds, it feels like I've been assigned to heal like my entire family tree's wounds. Like all the
yeah,
stuff that has been passed on to me. I feel like
right.
now I gotta what's the best way to explain this? Yeah, just like to heal all the stuff that's been passed down
Hmm.
from
Right.
maybe even generations so far back that I'm not even aware of. And I
Yeah.
think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you thinking that you would like to have kids someday?
Yeah, yeah, I
Hmm.
would.
Yeah. So then you'd be completely changing the trajectory of a lineage,
Yeah.
creating an entirely new trail or
Mhm.
track.
And I wonder if this has to do also with like epigenetics.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe somebody like previously in my family line was also starting this journey, and
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe I inherited some of their genes to deal with this. I don't know.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so actually not talking about this, like yeah, ultimately like it's a positive. Like
Hmm.
even though last year totally sucked ass,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's actually a positive, and I can
Yeah.
be and I can be grateful for that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
glad I survived it.
Yeah. And I mean, as you yourself are, we talked earlier how you are also interested and perhaps will become a coach. Through these experiences, you're equipped to help other people who are in a similar place
Mm,
and have a story to share, your unique perspective that other people probably need to hear and can relate to.
true. Dudes with mother wounds that are looking for relationships. Do you
Hmm.
think?
What's the question?
Like do you think like my ideal coachee would be like yeah, like guys in their 30s looking for a relationship?
I mean, that's up to you, right? If you decide to develop your niche there, then yeah, marketing yourself as an expert in that field, those men will come and find you. It's also interesting just to observe whenever you do start your own business as a coach, seeing who comes to you. Because
Mm,
sometimes it happens to be the work chooses you.
nice.
And there are people say, I had never intended to go into this field, but it chose me, it called me, and so this is now what I'm doing.
Right. Cool. Then I just feel excited to yeah, for that to unfold.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think maybe I was worrying too much about forcing it. Like, what do I do? Who should I coach? But maybe it's just all unfolding anyways.
Yeah, like the Wu Wei tattoo you have.
It's woo away exactly. Nice.
Yeah, the mother wound, which was actually kind of how we first connected, because there was a comment you made on a guy's post talking about the mother wound, and
Mm,
that's when I reached out to you. 'Cause, yeah, similarly, as you might have already guessed, growing up raised by a single mom, there was a huge mother complex that was being formed. Because from there, that became the template of how I saw women related to women and the feminine.
mm,
So similarly, looking to women I was interested in romantically, not as like who they are as their own person,
mm,
but a projected idea of who I thought they are or could be for me,
mm,
which becomes problematic because I'm not then relating to that person. And perhaps
mm,
some of the guys who are watching or listening to this podcast could relate. You know,
mm,
we can have such high feelings and hopes in that state of limerence, obsession for this girl or this woman, but it's it's not informed in any sort of reality. It can be coming from that wound, right? Our greatest
Mm,
hopes and desires, but also fears are put onto her,
yeah.
and that's it can be very uncomfortable to receive that.
Yeah, like now that we talk about this, I think like yeah, for most of my life, I felt like my mom was not like I thought that a mother should be safe to be around. And I
Hmm.
felt that my mom was not a safe person to be around.
Hmm.
Not physically, but like emotionally. Like
Hmm.
I felt I was not emotionally safe around her. So then I guess my logic was, okay, then like I should find someone that feels safe to me.
Hmm.
And then when I put that into the context of 2023 last year, when I had that issue with the two women's,
Hmm.
I think my mind was like, who is the most safe for me? Oh my God, I can't decide. Like, is it this one? It's like, no, I think it's this one. Is it this one? No, I think she's more safe. And then I think that's what was happening.
Hmm. Well, there's another piece of this where this this rocked me when I first heard it in my master's program. Our professor said, "Your past chooses your spouse,"
Mm,
meaning that your template of how a relationship should be, what is normal, is based on your formative years growing up in those relationships.
mm,
So I'm sure you've heard of the idea where uh, women, girls who grew up with a father wound, who have quote unquote daddy issues, they'll find men who are emotionally unavailable or emotionally abusive, manipulative,
mm,
it's like that. And it's because if someone grew up, like if we were to use your example, the piece around emotional safety, which was lacking.
mm,
Having emotional safety in a relationship could also feel kind of scary because it's
mm,
not normal. And maybe it feels more normal to feel guilty or unsafe.
mm,
So even when you're kind of like ping ponging back and forth, there was a period of unsafety. There was a period of perhaps that massive guilt. I don't know if that was something you experienced also, like in your relationship with your mother, but kind of like
mm,
that's where those wounds then continue to live out in our present and our future
mm,
when we haven't kind of had that awareness of, oh, this is where it's coming from.
mm. And maybe that was like my deepest childhood wound. I think, like, fortunately, I didn't experience something worse than that.
Mhm.
So I'm glad I could finally deal with that.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, even like now, I still feel like, even now, I can feel it in my mind. It's like, I mean, you could still flip again, right? Like,
Mm.
there's still a little bit of that, but at least now it's not like screaming in my mind. And now I,
Mhm.
and now I can just choose to be like, nah, I'll just ignore that, and I'm gonna listen
Mhm.
to this fan in my room,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and see what happens when I just chill out.
Yeah, I think the confusion around what is intuition, what is like the conditioned mind. I've heard people explain it in several different ways. Two that stand out to me is one, I've heard it explained as intuition is actually not up here, but it's below the neck.
Mm,
Like when you hear people talk of, I just had a gut feeling, and it
right.
turns out,
Yeah.
right. And intuition being more like a quiet voice, almost imperceptible.
Mm,
It can be like an impression of go here.
mm,
And so it doesn't carry a whole lot of, let's call it emotional static around it.
right.
Whereas something that might come from conditioned mind carries more of that emotional static of,
Mm,
do this because if you do this, look at you could experience all these things and da da da. Intuition usually seems to have less justification for why it even exists. It's just
mm,
here's the message. That's it.
mhm. That makes sense because the suggestions that I received during that moment of ping ponging, that was really emotionally charged for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about questioning it in that moment. I was just like, whoa, this is a really strong suggestion. Let me just do it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It can be very convincing. I remember times where I thought it was the right thing, and it was just wishful thinking for
Mm.
me.
And I guess now I just feel like, yeah, excited to see how the rest of my life goes.
Hmm.
And I've chosen a death year, which is 2086. I don't know if I'll
Okay.
actually live that long, but I have that year in mind. So like
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
every month that goes by, and I feel like, yep, I'm getting closer to that year. Like, am I living the way that I feel is healthy, like up until that point, or not? So like it
Mhm.
makes me like I guess check myself.
Okay. Yeah, because I've never heard that before. Was that kind of the inspiration to choose a death year to kind of keep yourself on track?
Well, so I gotta get more information now. Okay, so in that ping pong period, right?
Yeah.
Like eventually I did go back to my previous relationship, like to my previous girlfriend. Uh and it lasted like maybe like 2 or 3 months. And
Mm,
like during the second month, it just realized like, oh my God, this is not gonna work, obviously. Like, why did I do this? Like this is my fault. Like, so then I just kind of thought like, well, I think maybe the rest of my life is just gonna suck. So how long do I want to live then? It's like and
mm,
I thought maybe I'll live till I'm 69 because that's a funny number because of 69
uh,
and I'm
yeah.
immature.
Yeah.
And but then I thought like, well, that's pretty short. Maybe I'll just change it to 96. So that's how I reached that number. Like, no, I think 69 is pretty young. I think I can live till I'm 96. Why not? So then
Mhm,
I just chose that year as my death year. But then it did make me question like, so am I living how I want to live then?
mm,
Like, am I? Because I feel pretty shitty right now. It's like what I felt in that moment.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. So like I wonder what you'll think about this because like what I felt during that moment was like, okay, so like what I want in a partner is definitely not what I'm experiencing right now. It's actually like this
mhm,
list, like this A, B, C, D, E left. Like, okay, so this is my list of what I wish I had in a partner. And then I was like, wait a second, that list I just made, it matches the girl I met in India.
mm,
So should I flip one final time as a conscious person? And I did actually. And
mhm,
that's what I'm experiencing right now,
mm,
this final flip.
mhm,
And then but like it's funny that even now I hear in my mind is like, don't you want to flip again though?
mm,
So no, I'm ignoring that suggestion now and just
mhm,
choosing to experience what I'm experiencing now.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I mean, you seem a lot happier. I think just privately when we were talking about it, right? That
Mm,
it's something that feels fulfilling and really good to you and the right direction.
mm,
The the little voice that might come in of, don't you want to flip again? I'm not sure entirely what to call that. I think parts of our mind, whether that's coming from within or external interference, sometimes
mm,
it it's a choice. Right?
mhm.
Just like you were sharing earlier when we were talking about the two wolves inside a
Exactly.
person. Which one do you choose to feed? It's very much like that.
So I feel like now like because I have more tools to not feed this black wolf anymore.
Mhm,
Uh, so now I feel that makes sense with the dream I had during my nap yesterday, where like
mhm,
this like dark version of me was like feeling scared and shocked to not be fed anymore. Like
mhm,
I could feel his emotions like oh my God, I'm not gonna
mhm,
be fed anymore. What is this?
mhm, right.
So yeah, I guess I'm learning to talk to that part of me and just calm him down. Like it's gonna be okay.
Mhm, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I hadn't actually talked about this or even written the blog on this.
Mm.
I'll
Well,
take
yeah,
that into
thank you for sharing. I'm honored to be be here to listen.
thanks, man. Thanks for this conversation. And also like connecting this to spirituality, like I guess like or, let's call it non-dualism.
Mm.
It would say like this is all happening to like the character Nick anyways, right? Like
Mm.
and I'm just observing this whole thing happening.
Mm.
So then I even the part of me that feels self-conscious about it, like maybe that's just my nervous system itself.
Hmm. Yeah. Are you speaking like self-conscious about sharing more of your story?
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I feel like maybe like a few years ago I would have not been able to talk about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think th- when we start to have less judgment towards ourselves, less of that shame, less of the self-consciousness, we're able to share because we're not attached to the identity of
Mm,
being a bad or wrong person or
mhm.
somehow screwed up. And so then it's just sharing a story. Like
Yeah.
it's magic of storytelling, which reaches to people's hearts because they say, "Oh, I can relate to this," or "You're speaking to me somehow."
Mhm.
And that's where even earlier when we were talking, you brought up David Goggins, right?
Mm,
How so many people love to follow and listen to David Goggins, and he shares his story shamelessly
true.
after he got over that hump, and so now people like relate. There's something in your story that relates to mine that's inspiring, and
Mm,
I want to know how to get there myself. And I think the other piece probably is just for perhaps everyone, maybe men especially, if you've heard of the term vulnerability hangover, it's where we divulge some aspect of ourselves and like, God, the next day we wake up and we might be like, I don't know even if I should have shared that. Or we kind of just feel a little bit, yeah, the hangover part of sharing more intimately of ourselves.
mm. I've definitely felt like yeah, I shared something personal into my spiritual Zoom group one time, and as I was sharing that, and even after, I felt myself like physically exhausted, like kind of
Mhm.
dizzy.
Yeah, yeah,
Almost like my ears got plugged, and I just like hear my heartbeat. Just like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice, man. So we have about like 4 minutes left. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say to the listeners before we go?
Nothing comes to mind. Just appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. Thanks for having me. And may something in our conversation be of benefit to those of you listening who've taken the time to listen up to this point, giving us your time and attention. It's valuable. And yeah, just gratitude. And people want to reach out, connect with me, you're welcome to. Instagram is Sacred Wild Man. And yeah.
Sweet. I'll post a link on the on my TikTok and Instagram for sure to your channel.
Uh,
And also, oh, you're on TikTok too, right?
yeah, yeah. I created TikTok. I resisted it for a while. I decided, okay, let me just, since I'm already making reels anyways,
Mm.
might as well.
Are you on YouTube too?
Yeah, I have a YouTube. Mm.
Ah, sweet. Nice. Yeah, I think oh, everyone should know that this is our first time actually having a full conversation because we've messaged back and forth,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But this is actually our first time having like a full on conversation.
Hmm.
And I feel
Yeah,
like both of us had a feeling that it was going to be a good one.
yeah, yeah,
Sick. Nice. Well, yeah, I think I'm gonna go get some lunch actually. But thanks so much, Rory.
yeah. Thank you for having me.
Take care, man. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
See you.